We have another winner in store for you here on the sports section. Melissa Rahrich from the softball team coming up right now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the sports section. Long Island's longest-running call-in sports programming, but during COVID, the callers are the hosts. Matt Mankiewicz here, Ken Furman, Zach Wilson, and with us right now, and joining us for as long as she likes, softball superstar Melissa Rahrich. Welcome to the sports section, and guys, let's get it going.
All right, so Melissa, thank you for joining us tonight on the sports section. How are things going back home in Colorado?
Oh, they're going pretty good. Spending a lot of time with my family, my nieces. I have a new nephew that was just born as well, and then just been working, coaching, and playing slow pitch softball too, actually.
What is that transition like for you? Because you're one of the best fast pitch pitchers, especially in the game of softball, throughout the America East, and honestly in the NCAA. What has that transition been like since your final games?
Honestly, it's not bad. I have a lot of fun. I do really well, and I'm an outfielder now, so I'm no longer a pitcher or an infielder.
Makes it a little bit fair. Not too much. You can still gun down a few players at your behalf.
Yes.
Yeah, again, just reflecting on your incredible career, superstar, barely scrapes the surface. Again, one of the best careers, definitely in Stony Brook program history. But you could also, again, add to that in America East history. Your consecutive Player of the Year awards, your outstanding career, both as a pitcher, 55 wins, 4th overall in Stony Brook history, as well as your batting statistics as well. It's absolutely remarkable, just the numbers you put up. How were you able to remain so consistent, not only through college, but even through high school and throughout your entire career as a softball player?
I think that I was just really fortunate growing up. I had older brothers and sisters that I got to watch play. I learned from them a lot. And a lot of what I've learned over the years has been just by observing. And I think that once I got to Stony Brook, I never really knew, what I had in store for me there. I never could have imagined, all of the accomplishments that I was able to have there as well, and the player that I was able to become. And a lot of it was just from the coaching staff. I had someone over the course of 5 years, and it really did go so fast, but I accomplished more than I ever really thought possible.
Yeah, and you really had quite this career at Stony Brook. In 3 of the 4 times that Stony Brook was in the America East tournament, you made a name for yourself by being part of the all-tournament team, along with going back-to-back America East Player of the Year. How do you see getting those accolades as your team just had those chances to be pretty close to a tournament berth, but making it look very competitive to get there?
Yeah, my sophomore year was when I won the award for the first time, and obviously after my freshman year, I saw who won it the year before. I was like, yeah, she's amazing, and it was really never something that I ever thought would be given to me. In my sophomore year, Coach Bryant pulled me into her office before we left for the conference tournament, and she was like, you need to prepare yourself to make a speech tonight. She was like, because you're named Player of the Year, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell any of my teammates. I wanted it to be a surprise. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anybody. And I kept it a secret. And I walked into the locker room, and we were literally getting ready to go on the bus. And one of my teammates was like, oh, what was that? I was like, oh, it was nothing. She was just telling me something. She's like, oh, I bet she told you she was Player of the Year. I was like, yeah, probably. I was like, no. But and then even my junior year, when I found out, I didn't really tell anyone again. It was just really special. It was cool to see my teammates' reactions too, and just their support, them being happy for me and all of that. And even my second year, my parents were on the way to the conference tournament and they were like watching the live stream, and I hadn't even told my mom yet. And she was like crying in the car watching the live stream on the way because she just had no idea. And it was just super cool to be named back to back. And of course I wanted that third one, but it's okay because Courtney Cashman's a heck of a player too.
Absolutely. And just quickly, could we just touch on that sort of respectful competitive rivalry that brewed between, I'd say, the two of you as well as Don Baldrick, where it was really, you trio were the best in the America East when it came to pitching. And every game was so fun to watch because they were so low scored and competitive up until the last one of this season. Could you describe what game day was like heading into battle against a competitor like her?
For me, it was mostly just not like hyping them up and just like sticking to what I knew how to do, what our team knew how to do, and not feeding into like what everyone else says about the other team. And I think that that's super important. And it's just always realizing like what we can do as opposed to what the other team can do.
And with that as well, you also were stellar against UMBC throughout your career. There was a lot of competition in the America East. Just on that, what was it like preparing to go on the mound or in the pitcher circle, especially sometimes consecutive times throughout the week, maybe pitching 2 or 3 times throughout a week or twice during a weekend?
Conference was always, those games for whatever reason were always they just meant so much more. They were always so much more competitive, and nothing ever prepares you for conference play until you feel like what it's like to play conference. Like we tell the freshmen all the time, like you'll find out when you play it. Like you can't describe it. It's just a different feeling. And everyone just always plays to like a higher standard. Pitching multiple times in a week isn't too bad. I definitely, over the course of my career, became more efficient, and it was nicer on my arm. So I was a lot less sore and like less fatigued, so that it was easier to do that. That also goes to Coach Letts because she definitely helped me in that regard. But just doing whatever you can to help the team win, and if that means throwing back-to-back games, just emptying the tank.
Yeah. So Melissa, in your career as playing as a two-way player, by being able to be both an efficient pitcher and a batter, was there ever any time when you're able to draw inspiration from stars in the past that have also been one of the great two-way players of all time, such as Babe Ruth?
Yeah, and like even more recently, Rachel Garcia, who goes to UCLA, even though we're the same age, she's amazing.
That's a great point.
Yeah, she's actually in Tokyo right now playing for Team USA, and there's probably only like 2 recent college athletes on that team just because everyone else is at such a high level play and they're so much older. But she was a phenomenal pitcher, a phenomenal hitter, and she was able to do basically what I did. And it's just cool to see other people do it as well, because it definitely is a rare thing. Not a lot of pitchers get to hit for themselves, and I think I would have been so bored if I wasn't allowed to.
Absolutely. And glad you brought Rachel Garcia, because she was someone who I felt like mainstream-wise, us here, we knew her just following the College World Series and those postseason games. But I feel like mainstream-wise, she really got, her name throughout, full season and throughout. She's someone who was a back-to-back winner for the Collegiate Women Athlete of the Year award. Her rise was a Honda Cup winner. So a lot of talent there for sure. And with that, do you really sense, also kind of touching on Babe Ruth, as well as Shohei Ohtani in MLB for a comparison there, do you really see a rise in the two-way player happening throughout younger softball play, like high school and collegiate softball play in the near future?
I think so. I think you made a good point and brought up some really good athletes, and Odyssey Alexander is another one from JMU who we also got to actually play.
Yeah.
But I think that having people like that in the spotlight just inspires kids, so they see that like it's possible. Like if they can do it, I can do it. So I would say so, and hopefully they can learn and just see that, or learn from the people who do it well, see them on TV, have them in the spotlight and learn from them and know that they can do it as well.
So, Melissa, while being an efficient player, both pitching and batting, I say, you made a name for yourself as far as batting in your career by establishing yourself as a program's all-time leader in RBIs with 167 and hits in 246. Seeing as how you're trying to put a focus on both sides, how has that not stopped you from being one of the best batters in Seawolves history?
I have always attributed myself as a better hitter. My pitching, I did okay in my opinion. I got the job done.
I think you did a little more than that.
I had never seen myself as just a pitcher. I knew that I had like a lot more to offer. My hitting though, really, I don't know. It just really took off. And it maybe because I am a pitcher, it helps me be a better hitter and I'm able to pick up spins and stuff like that. But I've never really just like identified as just a pitcher.
Truthfully, I think a factor as well has just been your power. Again, hitting so many home runs again throughout your career, high school and collegiately, just total bases as well. You're able to grab 415, which is the second most in program history. And one of the reasons was I think there were pitchers afraid of your power, so they just straight up walked you. I mean, what was that like preparing yourself to be not only a hitter, but a power hitter at that, where you were hitting the ball pretty deep more often than not. And even if they weren't home runs, they still ended up doubles most of the time, which is another statistic you rank pretty high up on for Stony Brook.
I think as I got older, it got harder because obviously people were more aware of what I could do. Obviously, in this past year, I was hit just about as many times as I was actually walked.
Yeah.
There was a rough couple weeks where I could not go a game without getting hit. But it is ultimately, it's a compliment. It's them trying not to throw it over the middle. But it is tough, and I had to learn that and know like pitch selection and realizing that like sometimes I'm only going to get one good pitch. And I had a really hard time with that at the beginning of this last season just because I felt like every game I'd only get like one pitch to swing at. So it was hard for me to build at bat to at bat if I'm only getting like one swing. So I definitely had to just like relax, let it come to me. Coach Higgs worked a lot with me on stuff like that and just like the outside aspects of the game is not just like what you can do physically, but it's a lot mentally as well, and just preparing for like the small moments or the small chances that I was going to get just because they may not come often in one game.
Yeah, 13 hit by pitches to 18 walks this past season, just to your point, including a pair of hit by pitches against Maine early in the season as well. And just to kind of find it here through the total bases, you got a lot of those as well. But it's something interesting as well to me, and it goes back to the point Zach brought up earlier regarding Babe Ruth, was to me your batting stance. Obviously, you're not a Jordan Herring or a Kyrie McFarland. You're not a slap hitter. You're put in that 2, 3, or 4 spot because of your power and home run hitting ability, or at least extra base hit ability. And your batting stance, you're often your back foot's hugging the back part of the box. It's as close to being in the line as you could possibly get. You know, legs spread out. You got a low front kick, but you're able to drive a lot of power in your swing. You kind of talk through the process of how your swing evolved over the years in terms of getting the batting stance comfortable for you.
Yeah. I came to Stony Brook. I had the open stance, so that was already a me thing. When I was younger, I used to go to the front of the box. I was way up there, but I learned over time, and Coach Higgs helped me with this as well, that if you're in the back of the box, you're going to see the ball longer and you're going to see the break. So you'll see where exactly the pitch is going to land, and that's really important too, because if you're up in the box, the ball is probably going to move as you're swinging at it, so you don't necessarily know if it's going to land a ball or a strike. So going deeper in the box just allows you to see the pitch longer. It allows you to see the movement on the ball. And letting the ball travel is so important in softball. And if you don't hit with depth, you're not going to be a very good hitter. So you have to see it as long as you can. That was definitely something that I learned. Just being patient. I a big thing for me too was staying in my legs and not just using my upper body. And the more that I was able to stay in my legs, I was able to lift more balls. So
absolutely. And you brought a great point too, in the sense of with softball, it's so unique compared to every other sport, including baseball, because of that underhand pitching. Especially, you see pitches that are unique to the sport compared against something like baseball. You know, there's a lot of more risers up in the game of softball, screwballs, you know, those drop pitches as well. You know, you don't see that in baseball, but those are very prevalent in the sport of softball. So can you kind of talk to us about the mechanics behind all those pitches, both as a pitcher in terms of adding those to your repertoire, which is something you did very well, including with the heater, and also preparing for those as a batter, trying to swing for power?
Yeah, I think it helped me. I think they went hand in hand. I think that as a pitcher, it helped me understand a little bit more of what the ball's going to do, and I was able to recognize the spins when I was hitting. We in our hitting cages inside, we have machines that we crank up and we put spins on them. We put rise balls, we put drop balls, so that helps us a lot. If you go in there and just hit extra and just work on those pitches, because a lot of the time the machine's going to move it more than an actual pitcher will. So if you can hit the machine, like, you're in a good spot. As a pitcher, over the years, I definitely developed a lot more pitches. I came in my freshman year, I hardly threw a drop ball, and that was my go-to pretty much. So that was super important as well with the amount of innings that I had thrown, was just learning new pitches, being willing to learn new pitches, working on new things just so that I had something new to throw to the batters. And that was definitely my drop ball over the course of 5 years, is something that I developed and I started to throw really well.
Absolutely. Just the evolution in your pitches. As you said, so for someone like yourself who covered you, so we came in at the same time, obviously, covering you for the Statesman and then for WUSB, you know, that was obviously prevalent where, you know, it wasn't a problem that you only throw heaters, because as a freshman, you were still dominating the competition. But that was definitely something that caught my eye as you continued to evolve, especially last season. Was I'd say it went from being about 90% fast heaters, 10% drops, to about maybe 60-40. Maybe that's fair. Maybe a bit too generous, but at the same time, you know, just that evolution, it was so, I thought, crucial to the success, not only for you, but for the team. And in a teammate like Dawn Balderick this past season, who is a master at the drop pitch, you know, she throws it from insane angles and is able to get so many batters out by being called looking. And I thought it really added to the success of this team over the past year. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, definitely. Dawn and I are a lot different, which made it work for us.
Agreed.
She threw that screwball, she threw that rise ball, I threw the fast, I threw the drop. And since we were different, it worked really well. And we were able to complement each other. And it took a lot of stress off of me as well. And I think it allowed us to have more success when you have two solid pitchers like that, because it's really rare, especially in our conference. Having two solid pitchers like that, it takes you a long way. And it's a lot of fun.
Agreed. Unbiasedly, I think we all could agree. Best pitching tandem in the conference this season. And again, with Coppersmith, top three for sure. And just for the record, no spider attack involved in any of those pitches, correct?
Yeah, so you have really had a fun career with all the hitting and the batting. I'd like to go back to probably one of the most enticing games that the entire team could probably experience along with you. Back in 2019, you played St. John's, and, well, a lot broke loose in that one. At least 24 runs by the team, 25, while you were pitching and batting. You managed to get a grand slam in that game. I mean, just how wacky did it get for this team to have quite a record-setting day?
That game I don't even know. It was crazy. Like, one grand slam in a game is, like, really cool. Kaylin Core hit the second grand slam and we were like, no way. And then I got up to bat with the bases loaded, and I hadn't been, like, hitting that great that day. And I hit it, and I was like, no way. I was laughing because I was like, no way did we just hit 3 grand slams in a game. Like, that is unreal. And I think we had like 20-some hits that game. We even got walked like 18 times. Like, there were just so many absurd numbers that game that it was just like it was once in a lifetime.
You know that there's not really any bullpen players used that day. Can you even remember like whether or not St. John's only resort to like keeping their lone pitcher trying to start throughout the entire game, or do they have to use at least one or two more pitchers?
I think we went through 3, and they may have like re-entered one of them, but I think we at least saw like 3.
Yeah, and for sure, that's got to be like the easiest win of your career, right?
Eventually, yes, it was. At first, it wasn't like that.
That's it.
It was way closer of a game, but
I was just going to say, a lot of people forget that it was a 2-0 game starting off. And
yeah, because we still went 7 innings because we didn't have the run rule until the 7th inning.
That's right. Yeah, it was still 11-5, even up until the 6th inning. It's true.
Yeah, so it had to be that way. It was already a 7-inning game because that's how it is in softball. I guess you could pretty much say that your career 2 times against St. John's was quite fascinating, especially this past season when you played against them at home. You only allowed 1 hit to them. Your team did the rest by putting up a couple. Your team won 2-0. So I guess you could say playing against the Johnnies, it was really quite fun for you.
Yeah, my freshman and maybe sophomore year, they were really good, and I'm not sure that, or freshman year for sure, we did not beat them. But it was fun this last year too, and that was definitely one of my best games that I had pitched. But that game was really fun too, and obviously that 1 hit is a little crappy, but it's okay.
Yeah, no, not the way to go out at all. But again, at the same time, still able to put up incredible numbers. And, with that, you felt you were really successful this season. And one factor which I feel like gets underlooked was your battery mate, in Jordan Nowakowski, which was catcher for a lot of your games this season. I think virtually all of them. And I also just want to add in Irene the Machine Rivera as well, someone who was your battery mate throughout the first 2 or 3 seasons. So could you kind of just talk about establishing a relationship with your catchers and how beneficial that is when it comes time for you to take the pitcher circle?
It's so important. If you don't feel comfortable throwing to your catcher, it throws off so many things. Irene was amazing. I always loved throwing to her, and same thing with Jordy. She was great too. And I never had problems with either one of them. And even Corinne, like they're still set catching wise. Corinne is going to do really incredible things. She was really fun to throw to, but it makes all the difference. You throw so much better. You throw so much harder. Your spins work so much better when you're comfortable with your catcher as opposed to someone that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, just dive deeper. What are some of those conversations like in terms of, again, what are some of the things you connected the most with your catchers on and off the field? And B, what were some of the things you both, I guess, went through in terms of as you continue to establish your pitches and, get to that point where you're comfortable, as you said, throwing those drop balls or those screw balls?
Yeah, I think just working with them, and they know kind of how to correct your pitches for you. So if you're struggling and you throw a few that don't work as well and you need help, the catchers are there to help you as well, and they know how to help you and fix it, as opposed to always having to rely on like the coaches. So if I wasn't able to make the adjustment myself, I know that the catcher would be able to tell me what to do, which is really important for their job too, is being vocal and paying attention to how to throw certain pitches and the mechanics and every different pitcher's mechanics and knowing how to help us and what works for us.
What is it like in terms of this year, especially grabbing that leadership role? Because you've obviously been a leader. Frankly, you've been a leader since your freshman season. A, I'd like to know if you agree on that. But B, this season, especially with how unique the situations were in terms of separation because of the pandemic and social distance.
Our team leadership is what carried us through the season. I think that we had amazing team leadership. Our leaders were able to show the younger girls on the team, like, how things work here, even though it's a weird year. Like, this is still how Stony Brook softball plays softball. This is how we practice. This is how we work out in the weight room. Like, handle your business in the classroom. And I think that our leadership is what carried us and what allowed us to be so successful. I think that our leadership was tremendous, and each leader that we had on the team was a different type of leader. So over the course of my 5 years, I definitely became a more vocal leader. I was fine with saying what needed to be said in those moments, and which is fine. I was happy in that role. I was happy to say the things that needed to be said. But there are other leaders that are more quiet, and they just lead more by example, which is perfect too. There's room for everyone in that regard. But I think that our leadership was tremendous, and I even think that the coaches would agree that that's what kept our team solid. It's what made our team successful, and it's what it's going to continue to allow the team to be successful, even though we left, is that we laid a foundation of how Stony Brook softball runs, and we showed them what it means to work. So,
yeah, absolutely. And with that as well, you could even go back to last year to kind of seeing that growth in the team. You know, it was a bridge season, of course, but it's got off to one of the best starts in program history. Ultimately ended 10-4, but got a few big wins, including that 2-1 victory over Georgetown, the 9-5 win over Columbia, Dawn Baldrig's first no-hitter that she threw against Cornell. And, you know, even with that, you know, I thought you could really tell that this team found that next gear. What was that like in between your first two seasons and your last two, where you really saw the team grow and, honestly, as I said, reach that next gear?
I think that it had a lot to do with the players and just their willingness to come to practice and work hard. I don't think that was ever a problem for the team, and that was something that, like this year and last year, we handled our business, and we were very businesslike, and no one had to be told like to work hard. Like, it was just something that we did, and it was really, really fun, and it made it easier as a leader because you don't have to consistently tell people like what they should be doing. They just knew what to do, and everyone fed off of each other, and it allows you to raise the standard of how to play, and by holding each other accountable and just knowing how good the players were on the field and making them play to their standard.
So, also, reflecting back on this past season and what turned out to be your final credited win as a pitcher in your career, it was the Game 2 of the doubleheader at home against UMass Lowell, and you did fight hard. You eventually got the win because your team came through for you in the bottom of the seventh, thanks to McFarland and Osmer's RBI singles that brought home Shauna Nuss and McFarland. How do you see that? How do you see that to be quite a competitive game for your last ever win?
That was a really fun game as well, and Lindsay definitely came up clutch. We obviously weren't hitting as well as we could have been, but pitching and defense kept us in that game, and our hitting came through when it needed to, and that was definitely a really fun game to be playing in.
Yeah, agreed. And with that as well, it was, as you said, unconventional. Just got in the sense of because of who stepped up, as you said, newcomers in Lindsay Osmer and Kyra McFarland. And Farland's someone who last week was praised by your Colorado mate in Riley Craig, as she really saw a lot of her play in McFarland, and as someone who's really going to step up over the next season. And as I said, there's a lot of bright pieces for the softball team in the upcoming season, even with the graduation of a lot of great seniors, like the aforementioned Norkowski, Craig, and yourself. So who are you really excited to see get to that next level next season?
Kira is definitely one of those players. She's one of the most natural athletes I've ever seen in my life. She just does stuff so effortlessly, and she does it so well. And it's really fun to see. But for me, I'm really excited to see Jules grow. I see, like Riley mentioned, but I see a lot of Jules in myself. and she's so much fun to watch, and she always gives out her best effort, and she's definitely going to be a really great hitter for Stony Brook, and I'm really excited for her to continue to grow as a player because I definitely can see a lot of similarities between us two. So it'll definitely be fun to watch her. And same thing with Corinne. Corinne has so much potential as well. I'm really excited to watch her play, and I had so much fun pitching to her. She's a little stud behind the plate.
So with your departure, we expect Dawn Baldrick next season in her senior year to be the star pitcher again for Stony Brook and try and continue to pick up what she has done over the last 2 seasons. But who do you think is going to try and step up and fill your slot in that position?
Pitching-wise, they'll still have Shelby. Shelby does a lot of amazing things too, and like I mentioned before, how different Dawn and I are. Shelby is a whole nother type of pitcher as well, and she has some incredible spin on her ball. So she's definitely going to be able to help Dawn.
Well, we have seen flashes of Shelby Denman during the season, but not as much as you and Baldrick. So how do you expect her time next season to increase, in seeing how Megan Bryant is going to give her a lot more reps to try and complement Baldrick's pitching rotation stats?
Yeah, she'll definitely get a lot more pitching time, and as she gets more pitching time, she's only going to get better. When she was a freshman, sophomore, she got a lot of pitching time. So she has the experience and she has the capability. So as you see more innings, you just get better and better.
Agreed. Again, it was hard to kind of take yourself and Dawn off the pitching circle when you two were dealing this season. So, I understand kind of reserving her to only 20 innings, but you're absolutely right. She did go 5-1 in that abridged season, and even in 2019, still made 19 appearances and got 10 wins, including a career high 11 strikeouts against Bryant. But I'm also excited to see a couple of the new prospects joining this team. One in Ashton Meadlocks coming out of Honal Community Rock Valley in Illinois. She's someone who I think is going to complement that rotation real well, especially after being named the D3 Pitcher of the Year as a sophomore last season.
Yeah, I am not entirely sure. Like, I don't know much about her.
I don't think much of the conference does. I think she's going to shock a lot of people. But I'm glad you said that, just because I kind of want to bring it back to how it was for you first entering the conference, because you, I felt like, were put under the spotlight more so than most freshmen just because of how dominant you were in high school in Colorado. And you're a top 15 prospect. Your stats are pretty good as a collegiate athlete, but you were slashing .592, .629, 1.042 slugging as a hitter, alongside a 55-13 win-loss record as a pitcher coming out of high school. So did you ever feel any pressure in terms of having to live up to how tremendous you played in Colorado?
Not really. High school softball is definitely a lot different. The competition's not quite the same. But I think as far as pitching goes, it's kind of just a role that I grew into. I'm not sure that even like me coming in freshman year, I wasn't supposed to be what I became. I just kind of came into the role. I embraced the role. I was able to do a lot of great things for that freshman year. And I think I just kind of went with it. I think Coach Bryant went with it, because I don't even think in her head when I first came in that I was going to be the starting pitcher, just because I was a freshman. Like, it's a big transition. It's a different transition. And just because I had so much success in high school, like, it's not quite the same, and the competition's not even close to being the same. But I think it's just kind of a role that I grew into and that I found myself into.
Absolutely. And there were a trio of good pitchers there as well, in terms of Taylor Peach and Lindsey Hughes as well. But I thought from the moment you took the circle, you were outstanding. Not only as a hitter, 13 multi-hit games as a freshman, but I mean, pitching-wise as well, you, as you said, threw the most innings. You're a first-team all-conference, 7-4, .23 ERA as a pitcher just during conference play. I mean, you were lights out a lot of the time. I do remember a lot of no-hitters. Or, sorry, not no-hitters, but shutouts. And near no-hitters. Yeah, a few one-hitters. I do remember that during your career. Yeah, and with that as well, just transition again, just focusing more towards high schools, because and a lot of listeners from back home in Colorado tuned in today. Thank you all for joining us on the sports section. But again, what really drove you to wanting to become a softball player and playing it collegiately?
Yeah, I said earlier, I have 2 older sisters and an older brother. My older sisters played softball. I was always at the softball fields. I grew up there. As far as, like, everyone always comes up to me that are, like, older than me, like my sister's friends and, like, people that they played with. They're like, I remember you when you were little. Like, you were always at the softball field. You always had a ball in your hand. You always had a bat. Like, you were always up against the wall, like, pitching a softball. Like, it was, like, just something that I watched my siblings, and I just knew that I wanted to play. I was able to watch my sisters. I watched my brother. He was a three-sport athlete. He played semi-pro baseball, like, in Canada. So I was able to watch them play, and I was able to learn from them, and I was able to become who I am because of them. And I definitely can say that they helped me grow into who I was, and watching them always inspired me, and it allowed me to become even better.
Melissa, Matt here. I wanted to know, especially when it comes to our coaching staff's recruiting beyond the Eastern region, and they do use the whole country, how much did you know about Stony Brook before you were originally recruited?
I knew absolutely nothing. So the way it works is we play competitive softball in the summers, and Coach Bryant happened to be watching us play, and we had, like, a recruiter out in the stands that represented our team, and he, like, came back. He's like, oh, this coach is, like, interested in you guys. She watched you guys play, and she came back that weekend, watched us play again, and that was probably in July, and I came in November on my visit to Stony Brook. But I literally knew nothing about Stony Brook. I had to Google it. I couldn't have told you anything about it. I honestly was like, that's probably like a D3 school. I had no clue.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that as well, you weren't the only Colorado pickup as well. As we said, Riley Craig as well joined the team. And now even Kyron Farland, I believe, also Colorado. So what was that like having, I guess, someone from a similar background? We'll focus on Riley Craig here, joining in at that same time and kind of being in a similar position where, Stony Brook wasn't really on the radar until they came knocking.
Yeah, I think it made it a lot easier for both of us. We had known each other since we were little, and it just allowed that transition to be easier for the both of us. And we knew that we always had each other. We were like a sense of home for each other, and it definitely allowed us to both be successful at Stony Brook.
And again, just tremendous high school play. What was it like representing Brighton, your hometown, up through high school? I'm sure there were a lot of schools interested in recruiting you for high school play?
Yeah, I actually was not supposed to go to Brighton. It's somewhere that my mom wanted me to go to. My pitching coach was the head coach at Brighton, so we moved just so that I could go play for Brighton. But it was a lot of fun. It was a 5A school, so that's the biggest that Colorado has to offer. So I was able to play all the other good schools. I was able to play for my pitching coach, so he helped me with whatever I needed, and he was an amazing coach. Definitely one of my most favorite coaches ever, and I definitely can attribute a lot of who I am to him. But I had a lot of fun playing for Brighton. It was different though, because I moved after 8th grade. I moved to Brighton so that I could play there, and I knew one person. So it was kind of a hard.
Oh my gosh!
It was a really hard transition for me. I was really mad at my mom for a long time for it, but it definitely ended up paying off.
No, agreed. And do you feel that helped you as well in terms of coming to Stony Brook, where similarly you probably only knew one or two people, if even that, and you're traveling across, partially not cross country, but towards the Northeast?
Yeah, it was definitely the same concept, but all I knew Riley, and I knew some of the girls that I had met on my visit. But the way that Stony Brook Athletics works is it allows you to meet other athletes. So that's definitely super cool. Stony Brook Athletics is a family. But it was definitely a hard transition because it was like 26 hours away from home. But I had always wanted to go away from home, and that was part of the reason why I went to Stony Brook as well. It's because I had a lot of local schools that were interested in me, and I was like, I don't want to play in Colorado. I want to go away from home. I want to go be independent and become my own person, and it really did work out well for me, and I'm glad that it did, because there's obviously, like, we have CSU here, and that's like 40 minutes from my house, but I never wanted to like have the option to just like drive home. Like if I'm homesick, I can drive home. Like I wanted to be my own person and figure out life that way. And I think I'm definitely better for it, going that far away from home. So I think that I made a great choice in Stony Brook in going that far away, just because it was always something that I wanted to do. And I mean, as mean as I was when I was younger, if my mom was always like, she would make me mad for whatever reason. I was like, Mom, I'm going to school in Maine just so that I'm far away from home. And then I ended up pretty close to it. Yeah. And it's just funny to reflect on, but I think that it made me a more independent person, so I'm definitely thankful for that.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming with, Melissa. I get the whole independence stuff and all. It makes you feel like you want to spread your wings. I applaud you for that.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And with that, too, I think...
Go ahead.
I was saying, with that, I think it all came full circle when you actually did return home for a series, a weekend Colorado State tournament back in 2019.
Yeah.
How fun was that, being able to play a couple games in front of your family? Because they were in the crowd. They were they were in full force that weekend.
They greeted us at the airport when we landed. They were so excited for us to be here. But that was a lot of fun, and coincidentally that was like CSU's like one of the best years they've ever had. So Riley and I on our way home were like crap, like we haven't got to play in our first weekends like at home in front of all of our friends, like all of our family, and like CSU is killing it. And then, of course, we had really bad weather that weekend.
Yeah, rain ruined it. Yeah.
Super unfortunate weekend. But it was cool to be home, and definitely just for, like, the experience of it all, it was awesome.
I got another question for you. Now that we have Stony Brook has roots in Colorado, some alumni in Colorado, has anybody called on either you or Riley to do some scouting out there?
No. Our coaches were actually just here recruiting, but they come and do it themselves, but I think that they also know that we like work with teams here, so that if we ever were to come across a player, I think they would trust our judgment in that. But they definitely are more hands-on, and they come and do their own recruiting, and they were actually here like 2 weeks ago.
Did you have a chance to visit with them or talk with them?
I actually didn't, because, of course, that was like one weekend. I was out of town with my family. We were at the lake. So I had dismissed Coach Bryant, but they definitely keep in touch with us just to see what our plans are, see how we're doing after graduation, see how they can help us in any way and stuff like that. And, yeah,
it is a fair compensation. But with that, how would you describe the play in Colorado in terms of softball, the competitiveness, the nature, just how different the games and competitors are there?
I think we have pretty decent softball here. What was nice is that the team that I played for, we traveled. So we went and played the best teams that we possibly could. For softball, you got to go to like California, Texas, places like that. They have really tremendous softball players there, but like we can compete. Definitely back when Riley and I were playing competitive softball, one of our softball teams, we were good and we competed, and we played with those out-of-state teams. Like we won or we were able to keep up with them. But Colorado softball, it's just like competitive. Like we have like the capability to keep up with those teams. We might not be powerhouses of teams, but we definitely have solid players that come out of Colorado.
No, for sure. We saw it on this team, at the very least. But it is true all throughout the NCAA. I think that was one of the more interesting things is you're right. It's not necessarily the first place that comes to mind when you think about especially great softball athletes. But I think you're really starting to see the emergence from more of these underrated places. And I think Colorado is one of them, and New York slightly as well. Florida, you really started seeing uptick in great softball players. I mean, how does it feel for you seeing this sport continue to grow? Obviously, besides the great mainstream coverage, the College World Series grew, getting over 1 million viewers on ESPN, but as well as just seeing the growth of the sport during your time playing and now coaching.
It's awesome. I think a common theme with where those best players come from is they live in warm places, so they're able to play year-round, which really helps them out. But you mentioned like the ESPN coverage, and this year watching the World Series, it was just so much fun because even if you go on social media, it was just so much more interactive, and there was just so many people like, wow, like college softball is so much fun to watch, and it's just cool to like sort of feel like our sport is respected, because a lot of the times it feels like our softball teams are put like on a back burner, and it's like it's just not fair because it's like we are just as capable of athletes, and like we have so much passion for our sport that like we want to share with others. So it was so cool just to see people that aren't softball players watch softball, like enjoy it, want to keep watching it, and just say that it's like it's fun, because it is fun to watch. It's fast paced, things happen so quickly, and it moves so much quicker than baseball in that regard. And it's just softball is fun. It's fun to watch. And the College World Series this year was amazing.
Agreed. It was a very fun College World Series. And,
so fun to watch.
And every game, you're on the edge of your seat. Zach.
I'm here for all of the upsets.
Yeah, I don't know if we touched base on the Women's College World Series, if I missed that. Did we actually touch base
not
on
yet. I said Oklahoma and Florida State. I mean, wow.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's not just the fact of Oklahoma and Florida State. You also get the Cinderella James Madison Dukes looking very dominant up till then. Melissa, did you check and see how great the Dukes were in the tournament?
I was rooting for them. Just because we got to play them. I've played them twice in my career, and I'm always rooting for the underdog, but I knew how good they were. Like I think it was sophomore year, we went there, and they were like incredible. Like they hit the crap out of the ball. Like we could not stop them, and like they're so underrated, and I'm happy that they were able to put a name for themselves out there this year, just because they were amazing and they were so underrated, but they were so capable, and they had a really high skill set and so capable. They were so deserving, and I was rooting for them the entire way.
Yeah, not fun games if you're a Seawolves fan. A 13-0 smackdown back in 2018.
Yeah, that was a rough weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you saw James Madison looking really good. You had Odichi Alexander, the best star on the team. She was really quite the standout to watch. I'm sure you rooted for her especially.
Yeah, she this season, we played them. I struck out 4 times all season. 2 of them were from her. So
that's right. We gotta talk about that as well, because one of the most incredible stats to me was how rare you struck out. And this is going back to high school. I mean, you only struck out 4 times in your entire high school career, I believe. Let me make sure I got the stat right. Yeah, and I mean, and this season as well, only struck out 4 times. A, can you remember all 4 strikeouts? And B, what is that training like in terms of being, again, consistently able to just strike the ball? Even when you're out, it's still an out in play.
Yeah, I really hate striking out. I find it embarrassing. So it was just something that I was like, you're not going to strike out. Like, you're just not going to do it. Like, I'm not doing it. So I don't know. Like, people say all the time, like, coaches are like, well, don't go into the batter's box telling yourself you're not going to strike out because you're going to. But if I'm being honest, like, that was my mindset. Like, I'm not striking out. Like, I hate it. I hate it more than anything. So I just always tried to make contact. I had a lot of plate coverage. I really don't even know how I do half. Like, I can hit balls on my head, and I'm like, I don't know why I just did that. But I had a lot of plate coverage, which helped me with, like, the not striking out thing. Even, like, one of my at-bats in the conference tournament was against Courtney Coppersmith. And I had 2 strikes on me, and I was swinging at anything that I could. I was like, she is not going to strike me out. It's not going to happen.
I love the relentless that you're you're going to put out, and that is really great determination.
I also will add that this is something I'm very proud of, is she has never struck me out ever. So
I never will.
Yes.
I was saying,
good enough to know that she never got the opportunity to take you down like that.
Yeah,
but
and some bragging
on me, and I kept fouling off anything I could touch. And eventually, the ball that I hit was in the other batter's box nearly, and I hit it off of the wall to the right.
That's right, I remember that. Yeah, it was this close to being a home run. Yeah.
And after that game, she, like, came up to me and she was like, I don't know how you hit the ball in the other batter's box. She's like, I don't even know where to pitch it. I was like, I don't know how I I was like, that makes 2 of us.
That's awesome.
Just swinging.
That's awesome. Now, before we let you go, we do want to talk about, obviously, what you're up to now. You said coaching, and a lot of folks listening, especially in the Colorado area, I don't know how you don't go to Melissa Rahrich as your coach. I mean, as we said, 4 strikeouts throughout the entire season, 4 strikeouts throughout high school, one of the best in the pitcher circle. I mean, what has your coaching style really been like? Have you found someone to emulate? Has it been one of your high school coaches, college coaches? Well, what has that been like?
For me, so right now I work at a facility. So I work for a place called Red Line Athletics, and there, whenever someone comes in is like, oh, like, I want help with softball, they'll send them my way. I'm the softball coach there. I'm the only softball coach there. Wow. So if they need hitting lessons, pitching lessons, whatever it is, they'll come to me. It's mostly hitting lessons right now, which is, it's a little tough for me just to do specifically hitting lessons, just because, like, I have a lot of knowledge of softball and not, like, the specifics of softball. Like, I'm really good at, like the field work and, like, stuff like that. So, like, hitting lessons and, like, pitching lessons is definitely something that I'm going to, like, continue to work at just so that the athletes can get the best possible experience. But I'm definitely going to have to learn from other people on stuff like that, just because a lot of what I know, I know how to do it. I've done it. So being able to teach that is kind of hard. But I definitely want to keep coaching. I think I've been applying for some, like, collegiate jobs. I was recommended to as, like, a head JV softball coach here in Colorado. So if I apply for that, I'll most likely get that job.
Oh, we believe that for sure, and I mean, well earned again after a tremendous career. But, of course,
yeah, I can see how it's going to be quite a fun search. I can see that there have been some opportunities to watch out for. You could definitely use
with that, what would your team be ideally if you have to build a successful softball team? Would it be pure power? Would it be balanced? Would it be aces 1 through 3?
I definitely think it'd be more balanced. I think that I have very well-rounded knowledge, so I can contribute in a lot of different areas. So I think that I know the game of softball as a whole, and I know more than just, like, hitting, more than pitching, more than stuff like that. So I think that I have a lot to contribute, and I think that's why I want to continue to coach as well, is because I have so much knowledge that I've learned to give back to the sport. And I enjoy talking softball and, like, being able to talk, like, with other coaches. Or I had so much fun talking to our coaching staff about softball. Like, I could sit on a bucket and talk to Coach Letts or Coach Higgs about softball forever. And I think it's just something that I want to be able to give back, is I know how much knowledge I have. I have a really high softball IQ, and I think I have the potential to be a very good coach.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree there with you. So
Definitely.
I got one last question for you, Melissa. For Megan Bryant and your former squad now, seeing as they have an interesting future ahead of them, what do you expect out of who's going to be what you could expect out of a possible starting lineup come next February, a new starting rotation that will circle around Don Bodrick? What do you hope for this team going forward?
I just want to see them continue to build off of what we left. I know that they looked up to our class, and I know that they were able to learn from us. So I just want them to just go in and just have fun and not necessarily try to fill our shoes, because that could be like a lot of pressure. But I just want them to be the best that they can be, because I've seen all of their potential, and like they're there for a reason. So I just hope that they were able to learn from us so that they can continue to get better and fill those spots for us.
Agreed. And we'll wrap it up with a question from our own Mike Anderson, who covered you this season for the Statesman. His question is, of all your many school records and milestones that we previously mentioned, what was your single greatest accomplishment?
The 2-time player of the year, definitely, but this last season, breaking the hits record was really cool for me.
Okay.
The RBIs one, that one's cool too, but the hitting one means a lot to me. That one is just fun to say. Like I lead the school in hits.
Agreed.
No, like it's a really high number, and like the people that I beat these records with were like tremendous softball players. And as I mentioned, like at the beginning of this, all of these things were like, I didn't come to Stony Brook saying I was going to break records, because I didn't know that I could do that. And like, there just weren't things that were in my head. But as I like continued along in my career, I was like, wow, like I can actually do this. And these are things that I'm capable of. And it was just a lot of fun just to see where I ended up as a softball player, because I had a lot of success in high school and like on my summer teams, but I am so much better than I ever dreamed I could be. And it was fun. And I don't even know how I got to where I am, honestly. Like over the course of 5 years, like it all happened so quickly, and I accomplished so much more than I ever could have dreamed of.
I gotta say, from a fan and analyst standpoint, just your skill, again, both as pitcher and a hitter, is really unmatched. I did feel like every time I watched you perform, whether it was as a pitcher or as a batter, you knew fireworks were going to happen, whether it be you hitting a long double or getting it over the wall or striking out a side and wrapping up an half inning in about 3 minutes. I mean, you were dominant through and through, and you're absolutely right. 246 hits, no easy task, and it's going to be stunning should anyone ever break your record. I truly think it's going to last a long while before, if it even gets broken. And this too took place, getting those final hits during that abridged season. So assuming it could have gone even longer, you could have gone it a lot faster. 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 You could have gone it a lot, and added a lot more to that total. But I mean, Melissa, thank you so much once again for coming on the sports section, number one. And personally, we can't wait to not only chat with you again, but see you again when you ultimately earn your Hall of Fame acceptance in the near future. We know what's coming. You know, there's no question in our mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much, Melissa.
Thank
It's
you,
11
guys.
o'clock here on the sports section. WUSB Stony Brook, of course. You have been listening to a legend in Stony Brook softball now. Now she's graduated and looking to become a coach and maybe become a legend in that as well. Melissa Rahrich, thank you so much for your time, and we hope to have you on sometime in the future. Are you coming back for homecoming? That's a good question.
think so. I think I'll have like the availability at that point.
Should be fun.
I know that. Yeah, I think I'll be there. I definitely plan to.
Okay, so we hope to see you then.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.